𝗃𝗂𝗃𝗀𝗃.
Cool!
Hey everyone, it's Nux, and today I want to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog's rivals. Yes, Sonic the Hedgehog is very well known for having some very interesting rival characters, or at least he used to be. You see, back in the day with Sonic overall, there were these characters that really came close to matching Sonic in strength and had recurring battles with him over the course of the series. And these characters are known as the rival characters. A rival, by definition, is a person or thing competing with another for the same objective or for superiority in the same field of activity. And throughout the Sonic series, with stuff like finding the Chaos Emeralds or just achieving a vast amount of goals throughout the crazy plots of this series, there are a lot of characters that I think Sega did some cool stuff with, but over the years, these characters have definitely lost their luster. And that's what I want to talk about today, because I think the fall of Sonic the Hedgehog's rivals didn't have to be as hard as it was. And just one day randomly thinking about it through a Twitter thread, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to once again turn a Twitter thread that I made into a full video. And in this video, I think I have a way for how these characters could have evolved naturally and, you know, actually improved throughout these stories of this franchise, instead of de-evolving and losing a lot of what made them special in the first place. So that is what we are going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about various characters that I think most would agree classify as Sonic's rivals, and talk about how they could be improved going forward. However, there's only a few characters I personally would classify as Sonic's rivals, and there's going to be some characters that aren't officially Sonic's rivals, but I think have the potential to become really cool rivals. But lastly, there are some characters that some of you probably think count as rivals, but I'm not really going to count. For example, there's a lot of Sonic villains that have tangled with Sonic multiple times in one story that you probably could classify as a rival for that reason, but no. What I'm classifying as a rival is a character that has fought Sonic between multiple games, like has had beef with Sonic between multiple games, and going forward, I think they could continue to have beef with Sonic between multiple games. So no characters like the Eraser Jin or, I don't know, like Dark Gaia or something like that. They're clearly meant to be more so one-off villains. Now you could count, for example, I don't know, a character like Zavok and the Deadly Six as a rival because they've clashed with Sonic multiple times, but yeah, no. I do not count Zavok and the Deadly Six as rival characters, and best believe you know I don't want to see them come back as recurring rival characters. I don't even want to see them again in this franchise. Alright, but without any further ado, let's get started. Here's how I would go about improving the various rival characters throughout the Sonic series. So let's start things off with the OG rival Sonic character. That first character who really tested Sonic's, speed and just overall really stepped up to him in terms of being a match for his power. And that is Knuckles the Echidna. Now there's probably a few of you, especially if you're like a newer fan, wondering, wait, Knuckles as like a rival character, but isn't he like one of Sonic's closest friends? How could he be a rival character if he has such a close bond with Sonic these days? And I think what people have to understand is that when I talk about rival characters, I don't necessarily mean that they have to be diehard enemies of Sonic. A rival doesn't necessarily always mean someone who's like completely opposed against everything you're about. Like rivals can just be someone you have like a friendly bond with and you're just competing and butt heads sometimes. And with the case of Knuckles, I think that especially applies with him. See, with Knuckles, I do think it makes sense he's a close friend to Sonic by now and will help him instantly compared to like some other characters out there. Like I love that bond that he has with characters like Sonic, Tails, and even Amy. Like I like that he has this brotherly like dynamic with them. And it's too late to try and say those dynamics are otherwise because, well, there's just so many games where they're pretty close these days. So I feel like trying to rewrite that doesn't really work. That, and I wouldn't want it anyway because I do like his dynamic with other characters on the good side. But obviously the issue with Knuckles is him being so close with these characters and not having much agency on his own took a lot of uniqueness away from him. Like, it kind of made him this second-rate sidekick to Sonic, and I think that was a major downfall to his character. And I think one way they can go about fixing this is to look at something, for example, like Sonic X. Now, Sonic X, for all its faults, I do think it handled Knuckles in a way that I really like, where sometimes he does his own thing. He prioritizes his own ideals first, and he doesn't rely on Sonic. Like, Sonic and his friends clearly have their own little close-knit group between like Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Cream. Like, they're the ones who chill out at Chris's house and get into their own shenanigans. But Knuckles, he's often doing his own thing. He's often prioritizing his own stuff, and I think that is the best way to portray Knuckles. Like, he clearly has his own objectives. He's a treasure hunter. Like, that's something he used to do, so why don't you lean into that again? Like, sometimes he's on his own adventures and he's not always with Sonic, but occasionally he'll run into Sonic, and when he does run into Sonic, he will be willing to help him out. But sometimes his stubbornness and his willingness to be independent will still make him butt heads with Sonic and the others, and I think that is the best way to handle Knuckles. Now, I don't want them to take too much from Sonic X, because one issue with how Sonic X handled Knuckles is that they made him way too gullible with, you know, like Eggman. Like, obviously, originally the whole reason Knuckles beefed with Sonic is because he was tricked by Eggman. But unfortunately, Sonic Team would go on to rely on that way too much and make it to where Knuckles got tricked by Eggman so many times, it's ridiculous. Like, after Sonic Adventure, at least his tricking spree should like be 100% over. But yeah, that's how I think they can fix Knuckles, at least in terms of a rival character. Now, if we're talking his overall character, there's a lot more to fix, but in terms of him being a rival character, I think it's not as complicated as most people would think. So next up is Shadow the Hedgehog. And man, Shadow's downfall as a rival character is up there with Knuckles in terms of one of the most frustrating, because as we know, with his debut, he started out as a really good rival character. Like, he really tested Sonic's speed and just his overall power, and he had a really good story to go with him, and at one point he was one of the best characters in the franchise to me. But over the years, you know, while they've kept him a rival in the sense that he still clashes with Sonic, obviously he's not as good because the story around his clashes with Sonic are, at least in my opinion, not good. And he tends to beef with Sonic for such non-reasonable reasons, and for that reason, he's just not a good rival in recent years. So how do we go about fixing Shadow the Hedgehog as a rival Sonic character? And I know it seems hard to really keep him a rival, because with him, his main beef with Sonic and his own key issues are in the past. You know, he solved the mystery about who he is, he doesn't have a reason to really fight Sonic anymore, so theoretically, he should 100% be on the good side. But I think a natural way their rival dynamic could have continued is right in the fact that he joined GUN, this human organization that has their own agendas. You see, GUN is still a formal organization with rules and some restrictions to how they go about dealing with threats. So I can imagine Shadow's commitment to helping the world with GUN makes him willing to mostly follow the way they do things, which I think would clash with Sonic because he clearly is more of a reckless loose cannon that doesn't really follow any rules. But, you know, Sonic is still a good person, so basically they'd still be on the same side and wouldn't respond to every issue with fighting each other. But it could be an actually smart way to put them at odds sometimes, since Shadow will be more mission focused with GUN, while Sonic is more, Sonic. Not to say I think Shadow should become a complete lapdog for GUN, as I do think Shadow would be wary of GUN potentially being a threat in their own way. Obviously, because of the past with GUN, Shadow would not necessarily listen to every single thing they order him to do sometimes. But I do think the fact that he does work for GUN and is loyal to them to some extent would be an interesting way to keep them on the same side, as they should be following Sonic Adventure 2, but still retain a bit of a tension that they once had. And maybe if it's really handled well, it can lead to physical clashes between Sonic and Shadow that are reasonable. Not like them just throwing hands for literally no reason, but maybe they can clash on an issue and it can actually make some sort of sense. Oh, and in order for this idea to work, Sega has to, actually acknowledge that GUN exists again and actually acknowledge that humans do exist in this world. Yeah, that kind of has to be a thing in order for this to work, so yeah. Oh, Metal Sonic, Metal Sonic, Metal Sonic. It makes me so mad that they even messed up Metal Sonic in the first place, because Metal Sonic is so easy to get right, man. Like, he is a robotic clone of Sonic that naturally can keep up with him because that's what he was built to do. And he has this cool copy ability where he can steal other characters' powers, and he practically writes himself as a rival character, and yet Sega still found a way to mess it up. But enough ranting, let's talk about how they can go about fixing it. So, obviously, Sonic Heroes is the peak of Metal Sonic being a threat, because that's where he was the main antagonist. And I think Sonic Team should take some time to build up to that. First of all, they need to make him feel like a decent threat again before trying to make him feel like a large scale threat. And I think a way this should be done is to make him earn his way back up as a sort of leading general figure in Eggman's army. Not Goddang Orbot and Goofbot as the leading general figures, but Metal Sonic. Having him be that leading robot that Eggman can call upon and make the other characters say, "Oh shoot," when he's involved in something, will really increase his impact again. Maybe when he's not involved in a main plot of a story, he's either recharging, training in his own way, or running some kind of mission where he needs to steal something in order to become stronger. So the next time when Sonic and Co get a new ability and they think they're stronger, Metal Sonic will just barge in, and when they try to fight him, he shows off that he managed to not only, learn their techniques, but has his own unique techniques that just makes him absolutely terrifying to deal with. I think a way to make Metal Sonic an intimidating rival again is to make him unpredictable in terms of his power set, which is what he once was. Yeah, we know he can copy Sonic's speed, that's kind of his whole point, but he has an array of other potential abilities he can pull out of his bag as well. And I think eventually through slow manipulation, maybe he can once again become a big threat on his own, and perhaps even split off from Eggman to build his own robot faction, be this sort of other faction within the Sonic world that's a threat on its own. Though, if they do just want to keep him under Eggman, that's fine too. But they just need to stop making him this absolute jobber robot that gets clowned on. That's the main issue with Metal Sonic, that he clearly is just brought in for fan service, but in terms of his impact on actual stories, yeah. Oh, and lastly, I do not think that they should redeem Metal Sonic. Unless they're playing with some sort of alternate scenario or alternate dimension BS. If they're doing something like that, that's fine. But Metal Sonic is a character who should stay a consistent threat to Sonic and his friends. Mainly because it's bad enough Sonic has become so hit or miss with these new villains, so I really want Metal Sonic to stay a villain because he's one of the most iconic antagonists, and losing him and having him just be yet another hero would be so lame to me. Maybe there can be times where his interests align with Sonic and Co, so he'll fall into like a sort of temporary truce with them like Eggman did in Sonic Adventure 2. But besides that, no. Keep him a villain and keep him intimidating as a rival through the fact that he could just kinda whoop them whenever he feels like it. Jet the Hawk. It's kind of funny because Jet wasn't entirely ruined compared to the other rivals, because see, Sonic Free Riders is a trash game with a trash story, but he kind of was mostly in character there. You know, he didn't really have any issues to his actual characterization as a rival and just an overall character. Just please, for the love of God, give him a decent voice for once. Oh my goodness. But anyway, Sonic Riders is a spin-off series, so I won't lose sleep at him not being written with perfection. But I like the idea that Jet is sort of a underdog rival among Sonic's catalog of rivals, to where since Sonic has caught up to him in extreme gear and outclasses him in every other area, he's not a threat to him at all. And Sonic knows this, taunts him with it, and it pisses Jet off, which he kinda deserves. But this just motivates him to grow himself in his own way, and that makes him keep up with Sonic just enough to still have some respect on his name. Of course, he's not going to get too far because he's still competing against Sonic in a spin-off series, but I think keeping Jet as this rival that doesn't exactly manage to surpass Sonic, but keeps him on his toes just enough to where he still is a noteworthy rival is the best way they can handle Jet as a rival character. Like, if they bring him into the mainline games and give him more importance, I think they could do something more with him for sure. But in terms of just keeping him this interesting spin-off rival, I think that would be the best way of going about it. Alright, so next up, let's talk about the quote-unquote hooligans. And a few of you are probably wondering, who the heck are the hooligans and why on earth do you want to consider them rival characters? Well, this is Fang the Sniper, yes, Fang the Sniper, not Fang the frickin' Hunter, Bark the Polar Bear, and Bean the Dynamite. These are characters that have kinda clashed with Sonic in a few games and other media, but not entirely, because they're very obscure characters that don't get to make many appearances. But obviously we're seeing Fang make a comeback in Sonic Superstars, and I think this is a chance to build these guys up as another set of rivals to Sonic & Co. And the solution here to continue that momentum is real simple. It's very simple. Use them more. Basically, I think the way that they can be rivals is in the sense that they're lower stake antagonists who mostly clash with Sonic & Co. due to working with Eggman Boy Quick Check, or just causing some minor trouble for their own reasons. Basically make them like a reverse Team Chaotix, where they're not helpful to people at all and they just mainly do stuff for a quick buck, and that stuff tends to happen to come at odds with Sonic & Co. Though they don't even always have to work together like the Chaotix. Like, I think maybe they can be their own missionaries and they just occasionally team up for greater benefit and stuff like that. So I think this would make the hooligans a nice set of small scale rivals and overall antagonists to the Sonic universe. And also throw Honey the Cat into this dynamic too, to kind of be like the Amy amongst this group. Like, I think in a way you can make the hooligans parallel with Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy respectively. Like, Fang clashes with Sonic because they're both like adventurers in a way. Maybe Bean clashes with Tails because Bean, obviously he has this smarts to make bombs and stuff, so maybe that clashes with Tails. Bark and Knuckles, obviously strength. And Honey and Amy and being like these cutesy characters on the surface, but having a fierce side to them. So maybe they can parallel our main quartet here in that sense. And also, don't make them buddy with Sonic and them, because again, we have enough characters that can be buddy with Sonic & Co. Like, we need more bad dudes and dudettes in this universe. And I think making these guys kind of be like these minor villain characters would be really cool for me. And last, and most importantly, is I want them to use them for all of Sonic, because I know Sonic is in this stupid phase right now where some characters are locked to the classic Sonic universe. And no, bro, that crap needs to stop, because I am so tired of them locking elements to the happy-go-lucky mute classic games. I do not give a flying fudge. That's where the characters debuted. All of these characters debuted in the classic games, and if some of these characters manage to escape that bubble to exist in the modern games, then so can characters like Fang, Bean, and all of them. So let them exist outside the classic bubble and work in the modern universe. Like, I cannot stress enough how much I hate classic universe BS, but that, again, I don't want to make that its own tangent right now, so we're gonna move on. Ugh. So for the final character I'm going to be talking about as a potential future rival character is Sage from Sonic Frontiers. And this is going to be kind of interesting because, again, I haven't beaten Sonic Frontiers yet, so I don't know too much about Sage's character and what her potential as a rival even is. But from what I hear, she's compared a lot to Bowser Jr., and Bowser Jr. obviously is sort of like Bowser's new right hand these days, and because of that, he often clashes with Mario. So if Sage is going in the direction to where she's going to be loyal to Eggman and clash with Sonic a lot as a result, then I guess that sort of gives her the potential to become a rival, but I don't really know. Like, I don't know the relationship between Sonic and Sage really is. It seems like she doesn't hate him nearly as much as Eggman does, so maybe it'll be sort of like a bittersweet dynamic to where, like, obviously she's more than willing to work with Sonic if a situation calls for it, but occasionally, because of her loyalty to Eggman, it's gonna put her at odds with Sonic's, and as a result, she won't hesitate to, you know, try to kill him. And I think that could actually be really interesting. You know, she's someone that Sonic can kinda trust, but not really, because she's still, you know, close to someone who Sonic beefs with on a daily basis. And that would be an interesting dynamic for a potential rival character. But again, those are assumptions I'm making off what I know about Sage as a character. Maybe when I play Sonic Frontiers, actually, my view on her as a potential rival will be much different. But yeah, with that, I have covered all the characters that I think could be cool, quote-unquote, rival characters in the future of this series. And what? What do you mean I'm still forgetting some characters? What? Silver? Oh. He worked as a rival in Sonic 06 for sure, I guess. And I can see scenarios where he could clash with Sonic again. But nah, Silver makes sense to be more of a complete ally to Sonic and Co nowadays. Unless you retell his story. Again. And the same thing applies with Blaze. Like, I think they work better as close friends to Sonic and Co than rival characters. But now I am truly done. These are the characters I'd love to hold the mantle as Sonic's recurring rivals, and, you know, actually be written well as rivals in the process. The potential has always been there for them to be good rival characters, I think, and that potential is still there. Sega and Sonic Team just has to do something with it instead of... But anyway, that's just how I would fix or handle Sonic's rivals. Would you guys and gals tackle the issues with these characters and their rivals differently? Are there any other candidates for a good Sonic rival you think I missed? Or do you think things are fine the way they are? Let me know in the comments below. If you made it to this point of the video, thank you for watching all the way until the end. Be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new to it, and follow my additional social media such as my Twitter, or X as it's called right now, for more content and updates. This has been 𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗀, and I'm out. Peace.